Have you ever sat in a quiet room and felt the silence stretch longer than it should? Not the peaceful kind of silence that comes with rest or reflection, but the kind that feels empty, like something's missing. Maybe it happens in the evenings when the television's turned off and the phone hasn't rung all day. Or maybe it creeps in during a walk through the neighborhood when familiar faces are no longer around. That feeling, that quiet ache of disconnection, isn't just sadness. It's something deeper. And for many people in their senior years, it becomes an unwelcome companion. What often surprises people is how common it is to feel this way, even if you're surrounded by others. Loneliness doesn't always mean being physically alone. You can have people nearby and still feel invisible. You can have a full calendar and still feel like no one truly knows what's going on inside. That's because what we all really crave, no matter our age, is meaningful connection. The kind of relationship where someone sees you, hears you, and values who you are, not just what you've done. Social connection isn't a luxury. It's a basic human need, and as we get older, it becomes just as important as nutrition, sleep, or movement. In fact, studies have shown that loneliness can affect your health just as much as smoking or high blood pressure. It impacts your mood, your memory, even your body's ability to heal. But here's the good news: you don't have to accept loneliness as a part of aging. Connection is still possible. It might look different than it did when you were younger, but that doesn't make it any less real or any less powerful. The first step toward building stronger social ties is noticing the small ways you might be pulling away without realizing it. Maybe you've stopped saying hello to the neighbor because you assume they're too busy. Maybe you haven't returned a phone call because you're not sure what to say. Or maybe you tell yourself that people should be the ones to reach out to you, not the other way around. But the truth is, connection is a two-way street. It often starts with a simple action, one small effort to open a door that might have stayed closed otherwise. Sometimes that effort is as easy as asking a question. Reaching out to someone at the grocery store, a church service, or even the post office with a warm, "How have you been lately?" can begin a conversation that leads somewhere unexpected. People are often waiting for someone to make the first move. When you take that step, you're not just breaking your own isolation, you're giving someone else permission to do the same. It also helps to remember that community isn't just about groups or big gatherings. It's built in the quiet moments: a cup of tea with a neighbor, a shared laugh at the pharmacy, a regular phone call with someone who lives across the country. These moments might seem small, but over time, they form a web of support that feels strong and reassuring. That web doesn't appear overnight. It grows slowly, thread by thread, through repeated contact and shared presence. And if your world feels a little empty right now, that's nothing to be ashamed of. Life brings changes. Children move away, friends pass on, mobility shifts, and routines fade. It's not unusual to find yourself starting over in a new place or needing to rebuild your social life from the ground up. What matters is that you believe it's still possible. Because it is. People still want to connect. They still want to hear your stories, your laughter, and your wisdom. You haven't outgrown the ability to be someone's friend or to find one yourself. One place that often gets overlooked as a source of connection is the local community center or library. These spaces are more than buildings. They're gathering places filled with others who may be looking for the same sense of belonging that you are. It's not about signing up for a big commitment. Sometimes it's just about showing up, sitting quietly at first, and letting yourself be around people again. There's something powerful about being in a room with others, even if you're not saying much at all. It reminds you that you're part of something. Even if you consider yourself shy or introverted, building connection is still possible in ways that suit your style. Maybe large crowds aren't your thing, but a one-on-one chat over coffee feels just right. Or perhaps you enjoy structured activities like group painting or a book discussion where the topic gives you something to talk about. The beauty of connection is that it can take many forms. You don't have to be loud, outgoing, or extroverted. You only have to be willing to be present, to listen, and to share when the moment feels right. What's most encouraging is that every time you take a small step towards someone else, the distance between you shrinks. You begin to remember what it feels like to laugh with another person, to be asked how you're doing, and to know the question is genuine, to speak and have someone look you in the eye and respond with kindness. These are not luxuries. They are the moments that make life feel full again. There's a moment that happens when someone calls you by name with warmth, not because they have to, but because they're glad to see you. It's a moment that can lift your whole day, even if nothing else seems to be going right. Those small gestures, the ones that make you feel remembered, are the building blocks of something much deeper than casual interaction. They are signs of familiarity, of being woven into the lives of others, and they matter far more than most people realize. As we grow older, we often focus on the things that seem to be fading: energy, routine, the social calendars we once kept full without effort. But what we don't talk about enough is what remains available, even in the midst of change. Connection is not limited by age. It's fueled by presence, by care, and by a willingness to reach out with sincerity. There's still room for new relationships, for unexpected bonds, and for fresh chapters in your social life, no matter when you start them. Sometimes the hardest part of connecting is breaking the feeling that you're a bother. Many people hesitate to call an old friend or join a conversation because they fear they're interrupting or that no one really wants to hear from them. But most of the time, that's simply not true. People are often waiting to be invited. They might be just as unsure, just as cautious, just as hopeful for connection. When you choose to take that first step, you may be unlocking a relationship that the other person had secretly hoped for too. You might be surprised at how many opportunities for connection exist right in front of you when you shift your perspective. A familiar face at the market, someone who walks their dog at the same time every day, a neighbor who always seems to be tending their garden. These aren't just passing characters in the story of your day. They can become threads in a social fabric that you get to create moment by moment. It doesn't take a grand gesture. Just a greeting, a shared smile, a simple, "I see you again, how are things today?" can begin something meaningful. There's also a deep kind of satisfaction that comes from giving. Not in the traditional sense of charity or obligation, but in the form of showing up for someone else with your presence. Offering to help carry a bag, sharing something you've cooked, listening when someone needs to talk, these acts restore a sense of purpose. They remind you that your presence still makes a difference, that you still have something of value to offer, and that others, too, are carrying quiet burdens that feel a little lighter when someone offers to walk alongside them for a moment. Some of the most genuine connections aren't even built on words. Sitting beside someone in a waiting room, joining them for a walk without feeling the need to fill the silence, even just spending time in the same space while working on separate tasks, these moments hold a quiet intimacy. They say, "You don't have to entertain me. Your company is enough." That kind of comfort is rare, but when it appears, it brings a sense of ease that no number of conversations can replace. In other cases, creativity becomes the path toward closeness. Whether it's painting, music, writing, or even tinkering with tools or sewing projects, doing something expressive can draw others to you. People are naturally curious about the things we create, especially when we do them with care. If you've ever crafted something and had someone say, "Tell me about this," you felt that bridge being built. Sharing a bit of your world, even through a hobby or a project, invites people to step closer without pressure. Technology, although intimidating at times, can also become a bridge rather than a barrier. Learning to use a phone for video calls, joining an online group centered around a shared interest, or watching a live-streamed event where others are attending too. These things might not replace physical contact, but they do create new spaces to connect. The learning curve may feel steep at first, but the reward can be worth the effort. The sound of a loved one's voice, the face of an old friend lighting up on the screen, the joy of seeing someone react in real time to something you've said, these are gifts that technology can now offer more easily than ever. In the process of reconnecting with others, don't forget the importance of connecting with yourself. The time you spend reflecting on what you enjoy, what makes you feel alive, and what kind of relationships you truly want helps guide every step forward. When you're clear about what feels good to you, whether that's laughter, depth, simplicity, or silliness, you naturally begin to find people who reflect that energy back to you. You start to feel more grounded in who you are, and that confidence becomes magnetic. You attract more of what nourishes you and less of what drains you. And sometimes, even a shift in setting can open the door to something new. A different coffee shop, a change in your walking route, or attending a lecture or small event at a nearby center can introduce you to people you may never have met otherwise. Each place we visit carries a chance for a new interaction. It doesn't have to result in a lasting bond, but even one pleasant conversation can lift your mood and remind you of your place in the world. The most beautiful thing about building connection is that it doesn't have to be dramatic or sudden. It happens gently, through everyday interactions, through patience and openness. And when you begin to see every moment as a chance to reach someone, even quietly, even slowly, you discover that the world is not as lonely as it once seemed. There's a moment, often quiet and unnoticed, when something shifts inside you. Maybe it's after a kind word from someone unexpected, or when you catch yourself laughing in a room you didn't want to walk into. That shift is the beginning of reconnection, the point where loneliness begins to lose its grip, even if only slightly at first. You may not realize it as it's happening, but those moments build. They begin to rewrite the story you've been telling yourself about isolation, and they create space for something more fulfilling to take root. What many people don't talk about is how deeply the loss of a specific relationship can affect our willingness to form new ones. When someone you loved is no longer here, whether they've passed on or simply grown distant, the emptiness they leave behind isn't just emotional. It becomes a quiet absence in your daily life. You might find yourself hesitating to get close to someone new because no one could ever replace the person you miss. And the truth is, they don't have to. New connections don't erase old ones. They stand beside them, offering comfort in a different form. You're allowed to carry memories with you while still welcoming new faces into your world. There's also a kind of healing that happens when you start to tell your story again. Not just the polished version, but the real one, with its challenges, its hopes, and the moments that shaped you. Sharing even a small part of that story with someone can be an invitation. It says, "This is where I've been, and I'm still here." It gives others the courage to share as well. And when stories meet, connection deepens. Not in grand declarations, but in nods, shared silences, and the steady unfolding of trust over time. Some connections surprise you. They come from people you never expected, younger neighbors, someone from a completely different background, even a stranger who crosses your path at just the right time. When you stay open to those unexpected interactions, you give life permission to deliver new blessings. It may be a small gesture that starts it all, someone offering help with a door, or a compliment about your garden. These are the quiet invitations life sends your way. You don't have to accept everyone, but recognizing them changes the way you move through the world. Even humor, in its simplest form, creates connection. A shared laugh about something small, a forgotten item at the store, a clumsy moment, a bit of everyday silliness, reminds you that you're not alone in the awkward, beautiful messiness of life. Laughter doesn't need to be loud or extravagant. It just needs to be honest. When you allow it to surface, even when things feel heavy, it opens up space for lightness, and lightness draws people in. Some of the most meaningful relationships come from showing up for others, not because you have to, but because you want to. Visiting someone who's recovering, checking in on a friend who seems quiet lately, or writing a short note to someone who might be feeling unseen, these gestures don't just support the other person, they nourish you as well. In giving your time or your presence, you affirm your own capacity for empathy and care. That affirmation builds your confidence and reminds you of your place in the larger human story. There's also comfort in routine interactions that slowly become relationships. The barista who remembers your order. The person you pass each morning on your walk. The clerk who always greets you with a smile. These small, repeated exchanges have a way of growing roots. Over time, a nod turns into a hello turns into a chat, and before long, you've formed a bond that feels warm and dependable. These are the connections that may not make headlines in your life, but they create the emotional rhythm of your days. As life changes, the way we connect may change with it. Sometimes this means leaning on community in new ways, joining a support group, becoming part of a discussion circle, or simply attending events where others gather with the same goal of connection. You might discover that there's power in sitting among others who are also seeking, also growing, also wondering how to fill the quiet spaces in their lives. In those settings, you're not expected to be anyone other than who you are. There's room to be open, to be honest, and to start fresh without needing to explain where you've been. Sometimes all it takes to feel less alone is a sense that someone has made space for you. Whether that's an open chair at a table, a friendly nod in a hallway, or a genuine invitation to sit and stay a while, that gesture of welcome can shift your entire outlook. And the beauty is, you can offer that space to others too. Even when you're still learning to reconnect yourself, you can help someone else feel seen, and in doing so, you remind yourself of your own value. Connection isn't always instant. It takes time, and it can feel uncomfortable at first. But with each small step you take, you plant seeds that can grow into something real and sustaining. You are not too old to make new friends. You are not too late to find joy in someone else's company. And no matter what the past has held, the present still holds possibility. Sometimes connection begins in the quietest of ways, not with conversation or activity, but simply with the choice to stay open to being surprised, to letting others in, to seeing the ordinary moments of your life as an invitation rather than a closed door. That openness may not feel natural at first, especially if you've grown used to doing things alone. But like any habit, connection grows stronger the more often you return to it. And the beauty is, it doesn't always ask for more effort. Sometimes it just asks for presence. One of the most powerful steps you can take is allowing yourself to be seen as you truly are. There's no need to present a perfect version of yourself to others. In fact, the most meaningful relationships are born when we drop the mask. When you speak honestly, admit you're having a hard time, or share something that feels vulnerable, you create a space where real connection can happen. People don't respond to perfection. They respond to truth. And truth, even when it's tender or uncertain, has a way of reaching people more deeply than any polished smile ever could. There's also something deeply healing about being in nature with others. Whether it's a shared bench in a park, a walk through a local trail, or even sitting side by side in a garden, the natural world seems to make room for connection without the pressure of constant conversation. The breeze, the birdsong, the changing light, they hold a silence for you. And in that stillness, it's often easier to find the words that matter, or to sit comfortably without them. When people spend time together outdoors, a different kind of intimacy can unfold, one that's grounded and unhurried. Another gentle way to foster community is through storytelling that spans generations. When you take the time to share your life's lessons, whether in conversation, writing, or through voice recordings, you give younger people something of lasting value. You pass on wisdom, not just facts. And in return, you may find that their curiosity, their energy, and their own experiences create a dialogue that feels refreshing and real. These exchanges can become the bridge between loneliness and legacy, a connection that leaves something meaningful behind. Even when physical connection isn't possible, emotional connection can still be powerful. Writing a letter, sending a voice message, or recording a short video for someone can touch them more deeply than you realize. Sometimes, people don't even know they needed to hear from you until they do. Your words may become the bright spot in someone's week, the reminder that they are remembered, valued, and not alone in whatever they're facing. And the act of reaching out, even when you're unsure how it will be received, affirms your role in someone else's story. Some of the strongest communities are formed around shared rhythm. Gathering regularly with others, whether it's once a week or once a month, gives your life a sense of forward motion. It becomes something to look forward to, a gentle anchor in your calendar. That rhythm doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as tea on Tuesdays or a walk every Friday with someone who matches your pace. When you create that sense of consistency, even the smallest group can feel like a lifeline. One often overlooked form of connection is spiritual fellowship. Whether it's found through faith-based gatherings, meditative circles, or quiet conversations about life's deeper questions, these experiences create a sense of belonging that goes beyond the surface. They speak to the soul, to the part of us that yearns not just to be around people, but to feel held by something larger than ourselves. Sharing belief, doubt, wonder, or even silence with others can build relationships that feel sacred, not just social. You might also discover that being part of someone else's healing becomes a healing experience for you. Offering your time to help someone adjust after a surgery, assisting with a move, or simply keeping someone company while they recover. These acts of service, even in small doses, have a ripple effect. They don't just offer comfort to the person receiving them. They remind you that your life still holds meaning, that you still have something to give, and that your care is still needed in this world. It's easy to forget, in a world that moves fast, that some of the richest connections come not from doing more, but from being more available. Being available to listen, to notice, to respond with kindness. Being available not just in presence, but in spirit, the kind of availability that says, "You matter to me." That message, whether spoken or felt, can be the beginning of a bond that changes both lives involved. If you've been feeling disconnected, I hope this conversation reminds you that there's still a path forward. Not one that requires you to change who you are, but one that simply asks you to remain open. Open to a smile, to a pause, to an invitation, to a new possibility. You never know what can come from even the smallest step towards someone else. If something in this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Your experience might inspire someone else to reach out, to show up, or to try again. And if you'd like to keep exploring ways to live with more connection, clarity, and purpose, subscribe to this channel. We're building a community that honors where you've been and believes in where you're going. Here's to the conversations not yet had, the friendships not yet formed, and the joy that comes when you realize it's never too late to belong.